Hello, I'm Lee Morrison and welcome back to Bespoke Addict YouTube channel. In series 2 I'm going to be stretching this rather beautiful pair of bespoke English shoes. They were made in 1933 by a bespoke maker called Wildsmith. I mistakenly suggested they were made by Paulson Scone in the previous introductory video. Paulson Scone was another maker around about the same time. I do have other Paulson Scone shoes and we'll be looking at those in later videos, but to be clear, these are made by Wildsmith. Now, let's just put one shoe out of the way. These shoes are a little bit snug for me. They do go on my feet. I can get them on, but they are rather snug. They're not particularly comfortable. I need about an extra 10 millimeters of the length and around about 5 millimeters of width. It sounds an awful lot, but to be honest, that's in the terms of stretching, that's actually quite simple. In the previous video, I did introduce the various methods that were possible, and the method I'm going to be using is with an adjustable tree, and I'm going to force the adjustable gap with cutlery. Now, first things first, I need to prepare the shoe for the stretch, which means removing every little bit of polish that's on the skins. So it's not a position you'll be able to sort of skip. It's important that there's a spray. Let me just show you this. It's just like an aerosol. You spray this on the shoe and it softens the leather. You spray it on the sole, you spray it inside and all over the outside. Now, if you don't remove the polish, the spray just sort of bounces off. It's really quite critical that you remove the polish. And I'm not sure how much polish is on these shoes. They're very, very old. They are, 1933. They're sort of, they're pretty old, sort of 70, 80 years old at least. And I don't know how much polish is on these. Actually, looking at the shoe, it doesn't look very much. Just pop on a wee pair of gloves here to protect my skin from the chemical I'm going to use. On very old shoes such as these, the polish can be extremely difficult to remove. But looking at these, it doesn't look like they've actually got a lot on. So we shall see. Let's just get a bit of cotton wool and a wee bit of methylated spirit. Now, it's very important that I keep the spirit off my shiny surface here. I did go through this in quite some length in the previous series, in series 1. So this is lifted methylated spirit on cotton wool, and it's lifting very quickly actually. So actually, I think I'm right. I don't think there's very much on there. And whilst I'm doing this, I really should have the wooden tree in place. So let's just pop that back in. So it is, as I say, it's very important if you're going to be stretching to prepare the skins properly, and that means removing all traces of polish. You just keep rubbing with the methylated spirits until the pads come out clean. I don't think it's going to be an awfully difficult task on these particular pair. They don't seem to have a lot of polish on over the years. It is possible on very, very old shoes to spend a couple of hours or more, trying to remove this polish. Yeah, actually, I'm right there. There's not a lot on here. I do have another pair which I'm going to be preparing in a later video. Now, they are made by Paulson Scone, the maker I claim these were. And now they have a huge amount of polish. They have so much polish on the caps. They even look, the caps look patent, but they're not. It's just got an insane amount of polish that's built up over 70 or 80 years. So, as I say, I just have to keep rubbing and keep rubbing and keep rubbing until this is back to the bare skin. It's not worth trying to skip this. The stretching spray simply won't soften the skins if the polish has not been removed. So I think it's going to take about 5 minutes to remove this. It's not particularly difficult. Now, after these shoes have been stretched, it won't take an awful long time. I expect to be able to stretch these in one session. They don't need a great deal. After they've been stretched, there's a few minor cuts and nicks and abrasions to these very fine skins. So we'll be using abrasive techniques to smooth those skins out. They will need re-dyeing. With something so dark, when you use abrasives, it goes through really back to the bare skin. It's quite pale, like a pale grey it will be underneath, and it doesn't work out very successfully trying to hide that with polish. I'll need to re-dye them, which is ever so simple. I'll go through that with you, and like I say, we'll re-dye the whole shoe black, then we'll moisturise it and then polish it. So It's a little bit of a tedious task, not the most thrilling to see being done, polish being removed, but it's very, very important and a bit repetitive. And just split the cotton wool, go for a slightly cleaner bit on the inside, more spirit, and go right up onto these tongs. Now they've actually had off camera, they've had various repairs have been done to these shoes already. Now this tongue area that I'm working on, the back, the rear, or the lining, it kind of started to disintegrate on the edge, which is very, very rare. I'd never seen that before. More often the linings around the inside and underneath the vamps, they disintegrate with wear, but no, these had started to disintegrate just behind the tongs here. Now this back area, it's all been re-stitched across the edge through the maker's original holes, and there's actually new skin has been sort of let in there. So yeah, it's not visible from the outside. All of this stitching across this top edge, it's actually brand new. I've done it by hand through the maker's original holes. That's something we'll come to in later videos. It's a more advanced technique, and I will be doing a lot of stitching. And what normally happens, and it did happen on these, stitching around the edges, around the heels, that fails. It just rots with time. Bear in mind, these are from 1933. We're now in 2018. These are very, very old shoes. The skins are in beautiful condition. They've been very well looked after. They've got all the original soles and heels. They've clearly been well looked after and not used a great deal. Certainly not been used outdoors, and I suspect they've never been wet in the rain. But what had happened on these, the stitching had started to fail. Then the stitching obviously holds the shoe together, and it's even got on the inside, it's a very fine band. It's like a very fine, it's a fabric. It's like a ribbon, but quite coarse, and that goes all the way around the inside. That takes the strain, stops the strain being on the leather. That was still there, but the stitching had failed. So these skins had started to split vertically, all the way around. So I've unpicked it and separated the lining from the outer skins, and I've glued in place chamois leather, the type of leather that you would use for cleaning your car and wiping the car down afterwards. Very, very thin, but it's quite strong. So I've actually sandwiched between the outer skin, the inner skins, chamois leather, glued it, and then re-stitched all the way around. It took me a few hours to re-stitch all through these tiny, tiny holes. So that should be really quite strong now, and it will survive the stretch. Because the skins were starting to fail before, there were really quite a lot of little splits. And yeah, they were really starting to suffer. They would have torn completely all the way down to the heel. The shoe would have been very difficult to restore from that. So yeah, this is not as much polish as I expected. So let's just keep going for a bit. But that's the sort of repair I'll be coming to in later videos, and show you the stitching in great detail. This one really is about stretching. I didn't want to sort of slow the process down by showing you the stitching first. We've got plenty of other shoes that need that kind of work. Now this is not too bad actually. There's not much polish on these at all. But as I say, this bit is definitely, you can't skip this bit. If you try to skip the polish removal, the skin simply will not soften for the stretch. Now I need to get rid of that. Let's just take the cap off here. I don't want to be getting the methylated spirit on my shiny surface. Go for a nice new bit. Now I've dropped methylated spirits on my surface before. It takes the varnish right off. So yeah, we're not doing too badly with this removal of the polish. It's going a lot quicker than I'd anticipated. So it is rather repetitive, and there's nothing to say though, it does need to be done. So, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the camera, and I'm going to repeat this process off camera. It's rather tedious to watch this happening. So let me just turn off the camera, and I'll come back to you when we're ready to soften the skins with the spray. The polish is now successfully removed from the shoe, and the shoe actually still looks quite dark. It's actually wet from the methylated spirit. It took less than 10 minutes in total to do this one shoe. If I were to let the shoe dry out, which I'm not going to, we don't need, the shoe being wet for the stretch purpose is going to help. But if I were to let it dry out, it would go really quite grey. It would look very dull. It still looks quite black, but purely because it's wet. Now, what we need to do at this stage is to apply the spray, the stretching spray. Now, they're all much of a muchness, I think, these sprays. They're all rather similar. And you just buy this from sort of shoe repairers, or, some places that sell children's shoes, funny enough, seem to stock this spray. It's about £4 or £5 a tin. Get that out of the way. I need to protect my surface. It is quite a solvent, so I just want to put a bag down just to protect my surface. And I've got a second bag here. When the shoe has been sprayed quite liberally, I'm going to pop this shoe inside the bag and wrap it up. It doesn't tell you to do that in the instructions, but it does makes quite a difference. Basically, what it tells you on the instructions is spray very lightly. It tells you just to give it a quick spray on the inside, and that's about it. It doesn't mention sort of wrapping it up in a bag or anything. Anyway, let me start spraying. I'm going to spray the inside first, and I'll spray quite a lot. Get it quite wet. Don't want to be breathing this in. It isn't very nice to breathe in. So yeah, this dampens the skins, and it just softens them. Just push the tongue out of the way. Right, I'm going to do the bottoms, the soles. It doesn't mention doing the soles in the instructions, but it is a skin, and it will soften, and it will give slightly. We don't want all the stretch to be on the uppers. If we can get a wee bit of stretch on the soles, all the better. So just sort of let that soak in. Now I'm going to give a very good heavy dose to the outside skins. It looks a bit odd, and it's quite frightening, in fact, if you're not experienced with leather, to be treating your skins in such a way. All right, another really good dose inside. Far heavier than the instructions on the can suggest. Now I'm going to get another bag. I'm going to pop the shoe inside the bag. And whilst it's in that bag, I'm going to give it yet more spray. Okay, there we go. All inside, on the sole. That's it, it's enough spray. Let's get that shoe completely wrapped up in the bag. There we go. Okay, so the purpose of the bag, this is a solvent spray. And solvents evaporate very quickly. And if you follow the instructions on the can, it evaporates before you actually come to the stretching treatment. So I will leave that for about 10 minutes inside this bag. And the solvents are definitely not going to evaporate whilst it's in there. And when I take it out of the bag, we'll then put the tree inside and put this out of the way. And we'll put the tree inside. Now I'm going to force this adjustable tree, and it will close up almost entirely when it's inside the shoe. So what I'm going to do is force this gap open with an old chisel, and I'm going to sort of pack, as I force it open, I'm going to pack the gaps with just cutlery. This is actually a decent cutlery. I shouldn't be using this, or I can use wooden spatulas, anything that comes to hand really, just something to stop this sort of returning. The shoe will stretch under the tension of the chisel. You'll see me do it in a few minutes. We've just got to wait for the solvent to take place. So I'm going to be packing, anything that comes to hand really, bits of wood, old pegs. These are cooking spatulas. I've got cutlery. So in the first instance, you'll want something quite thick, and then as you tend to force about 1 millimetre or 2 at a time. So perhaps the blade of a knife. It looks very odd, but when this is inserted into the shoe, you'll see exactly what I'm doing. So we need to wait about 10 minutes. The longer you wait, the softer the skin will be. The softer the skin, the less likelihood there is of any damage or tearing. I did discuss various other methods in the previous film on the introduction to stretching. This is not a shoe stretcher. It's a shoe tree just for retaining the shape. But you can sort of use it as a stretcher in a bizarre way, which I'm going to demonstrate to you in a few minutes. So we'll come back to this in a few minutes. I need to just let the shoe soak in the bag, and then we'll come back. I'll insert the tree and apply some tension. Right, so the shoe's had about 10 minutes inside the bag, so let's just have a look. It's still quite wet inside there, yeah. If I'd have not put it inside the bag, it would have entirely dried. Yeah, it's still a little bit wet. I'm going to put, just for good measure, a little bit more spray. Not a lot, just a bit. Pop the tree back inside. Because this, on the instructions, this is pretty much all it tells you to do. It doesn't mention keeping it in a bag to really let the solvents do their work. And give it one more spray just for good measure. Now, yes, I do need to be popping the lace back in. It's quite important to keep the shoe laced up for this bit, and we don't want any unnecessary tension being applied on the edges. We keep the tension on the laces. There are so many methods you can use for stretching. There are various stretching tools available. To be honest with you, most of the ones that I've made recently, they're really not very good. They're so soft. The threads are plastic, and the wooden blocks themselves are very, very cheap, soft pine. They're not really up to the job. That's why one of the reasons I'm using a shoe tree here. And also, most of you guys out there have already got a tree. Very few people have got a stretcher. So let's show you what can be done with the shoe tree. Use the shoe stretcher. Right, my chisel, and we'll need a few wooden spatulas. It's the wood I'm after. It doesn't need to be a spatula. It could be a clothes peg. It could be pencils. Anything at all that can be used just for packing. See, it's that gap there in the flexible tree. I've got to force that open and jam these in to stop the skins returning, because the skins will stretch now. They're quite wet and quite soft. So I think a couple of knives. Let's just get my things handy. Back a couple of spoons as well. Now then, let's see. So I'm going to force this old chisel into the gap here, and I don't know if you can see it from the camera, but this area is stretching quite a lot and quite quickly. It is a bit awkward. You could do with 3 hands really for this. So let's just I need 2 of those. Yes, pop 2 in together. What I need to do is, like I say, when I force this open, which is that now, I need to stop it from returning. So I've got 1 in. Let's force it a bit more. There we go. It's quite awkward. There's a lot of tension on this skin now. Here we go. Just trying to get 2 of these spatulas in the same hole if I can. It is very awkward. It's not the tool for the job, it's just I'm forcing it to be used. This is not really, there we go. Perhaps take trying to get too much in one go. Let's try a spoon, there we go, that's it. There's 1. Yes. There we go. That's it. I'm struggling a bit here, so we'll stop. Let's just realign. So we've got 1 spatula and one back of 1 spoon. That's probably about 3 or 4 millimeters. It's not enough. I do need to get more. It is quite awkward, so I'm just going to fiddle about. There we go. Yeah, without the stretching spray, the skins would just simply tear. If these weren't wet damp. They would tear very, very quickly. So I just need to I need to fill this gap the other side. I just need a bit more stretch. So I need to fill the gap the other side and then possibly get another knife in this side. So see what we can get away with. You need to, it is under some tension. Yeah, okay, another knife in there I think. It won't slip in. So if I put my thumb on the end of the knife, as I apply the tension with the old chisel, I should be able to slip the knife in. Ah, there it is, it's in. That's it, it's in. Now then, that's quite a bit. Yeah, that is quite a bit. I think, let's have a look. No, I'm going to do one more. So if I just pop the knife in place, it won't fit. I keep some tension on the tip of the knife. Use my chisel to force the wooden blocks, and then the knife should slip in. It's quite hard work. I need to keep all this together and keep some tension on the top of the knife. It's slipping apart. It is very awkward. There we go, it's in. Okay. I think that will be about as much as I dare go. That is about a 7 or 8 millimeter stretch on the length. Strictly, this shoe tree is not a width stretcher, but because it's the tree itself is tapered, as it gets forced down, the taper gets forced into the tip, it will splay quite a bit, 3 or 4 millimeters. It will force some extra width into the shoe. I'm going to stop here. That will now be left for at least 12 hours to dry. It looks very surreal, but when this dries, this shoe is going to be at least 6 or 7 millimeters longer. That might be enough. I was thinking maybe 9 or 10 millimeters, but 7 or 8 millimeters might be enough. But it's very wet and I need to sort of let it set. And once it dries, the shoe will not reshrink to its original size. It will stay that size. If I need to repeat the process, I'll do so later. There is a limit on what you can achieve in one go, and I think we're about at that limit. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll come back to this in the next video. And the shoe will be looking very dry, or looking very grey, but it will be bigger. And I'm going to try it on for size. Fingers crossed, it'll be good enough, and I'll be able to continue with the process. And that will be to take out all of the scratches and the chips and any slight damage to the skin. So we'll come back to that tomorrow, and I'm very, very hopeful. Thank you for watching, and I do hope you found this a useful exercise. My name's Lee Morrison. This is Bespoke Addict YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.